Welcome to this episode of Safe Home Podcast for struggling teens and their families finding their healing path. I'm Beth Syverson, a mom of an 18-year-old son, Joey, who's been dealing with addiction and mental health issues for several years. I'm walking beside him as he struggles with his recovery while I work on my own personal growth and healing. And I'm very happy to say that today is on this episode with us.
Hello. I'm very happy to be here.
Hello, my love. I'm glad you're here.
Yes.
How have you been?
I've been good. I'm sober. I'm trying to be sober with marijuana because of a CHS fit. We'll talk about that probably a little later, but I'm doing a lot better after that. My head feels a lot clearer. I'm looking for jobs. I applied to LAUSD. That's Jan's work, so I might possibly work with her at one point. And yeah, just things are looking up.
Yes, I'm very glad. Last week, you were super duper sick with CHS, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. We have a whole episode about that. And glad you recovered from that. And the only cure for CHS is to never, ever, ever use cannabis again.
Yes, because my organs can shut down.
Yeah, it's really, really serious.
Yeah.
And it's so sick. Like he was so
I wasn't like
sick.
in reality. It was like I was no longer in my body.
Yeah, it was bad. They say women who've had this, who have also given birth, say CHS is worse than childbirth, the pain of the stomach cramps. So I'm very glad you're feeling so much better.
Yeah.
And you're clearer and you're more present. And I just am very excited for you. And you've gotten more work done the last week than you've done probably in the last 3 years.
Yes.
As far as like pursuing jobs, and you got your ID and you're really
I forgot about that. Yeah.
making stuff happen.
Yeah. It's the forward momentum.
Yes, forward motion. I love it. It's so good. And Joey has a friend here today as our guest. Would you like to introduce our guest today?
Yes, Cheyanne. She is actually a close friend of mine through my fiance, Sonia, who I recently got to know, but we have a really cool connection that we're both adopted, and we know that it's a trauma for both of us. And now she is going to tell her story and how it affected her, the adoption, and how she's living on with it and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And I love highlighting you guys' voices, teens and young adults, kids that are having struggles and kids who are working through stuff. It helps other kids know that it's possible to work through stuff, and it helps families and parents give them hope and give them tools for how to help their kids. So thank you, Cheyanne, for being here, and welcome to Safe Home.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Yeah, good. And I know you and Joey have connected because you're both adopted, and there's a few other things that you guys have in common. You both have adoptive parents that got divorced after they adopted you. And you also both have really worked hard through many different types of therapy and treatment programs and personal growth of your own making. And so I want to definitely get to that part of it. But first, I think you need to tell your story, whatever parts of it you're willing to share. So why don't we start from the very beginning? Where were you born?
I was born in Mississippi.
And so how was that with your parents at the very beginning?
I mean, it was a little chaotic. I was just a baby, so I don't really fully remember. So a lot of what I've been told about my early childhood is kind of hearsay. It's not really like this for sure happened or not. But my birth parents are really bad on drugs, and it just wasn't going to be a safe environment with me. And my birth dad isn't the best person in the world. So my mom just decided to take me to California and try and start a better life for me.
Okay.
And have me live with her dad.
Okay. So with her dad and his wife.
Yes.
Right. Which wasn't your birth grandma, but a step grandma.
Yeah, my step grandmother, yes.
Okay. So you went and lived with your grandma and grandpa. Did you call them grandma and grandpa, or did you call them mom and dad?
I called them mom and dad.
Yeah, because you were so little, you had no idea.
That's like I knew I had a mom because like my birth mom left me when I was 3. So I have memory of that. So I remember her, but besides that, no.
Okay, so you just called them mom and dad. Okay, and how did that go?
Probably worse than imagined, but it just wasn't a peaceful household. 3 years old, just chilling, minding my own business, and one moment there could be cops at the door, next moment there could be, someone telling us to get out of the house. You never knew what was going to pop up one day or the other.
Your life seemed to be like always on edge. Like you didn't know what the next happenings were. You even mentioned that to me, like that's one of your problems. You just sometimes don't know what's happening, and that kind of freaks you out.
Yeah.
Because that's probably a trauma you had in the past of not knowing if danger is going to be or if something very chaotic is going to happen. So you just always want to know what's happening because it's a trauma.
Became very vigilant, right?
Very, very vigilant.
So why were cops coming to your house? What was going on at your house?
So much drugs. So much drugs. There were homeless people in and out of the house all hours of the day. No matter, it could be 4:30 in the morning and there could be some homeless guy at the door like, hey, let me in.
Wow.
So it was either for them or for my grandfather because he always had warrants. He always had people looking for him. It was, and then like one day I was just chilling on the couch and then, I had the whole entire police department like knock down my front door for a raid and handcuffs everyone, like 30 people that were in the house, and then didn't really care that there was a 3-year-old child just sitting there like in complete shock, just not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
It was this is where CPS and the government should have helped this child, you.
Yeah.
But no, it took, like, you're going to tell your story, but it took a little bit more time for them to realize that, oh, this child needs help.
Yeah. Were you the only child in the house?
Yeah.
That's like, so you were the only child your grandparents were taking care of. There weren't any other little kids.
No.
And the cops came in and arrested these 30 people and just said, oh, well, there's a kid. Oh, well, fine. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then they didn't necessarily like mock me per se or anything like that. But like, as a 3-year-old child, not knowing what's going on, I looked up to my grandfather like he was my dad.
Sure.
That's what I was taught. That's what I thought. So seeing him being arrested like in front of my eyes was very traumatic
I bet.
as a young kid. And then the cops just kind of looked at me and was like, oh, do you want to give your dad a hug? And I'm like, yeah, like I'll give him a hug, not putting 2 and 2 together that he's still handcuffed. Not putting 2 and 2 together. Oh, they're not going to uncuff him. Like I'm just going to hug this like kind of lifeless,
The legs.
this like lifeless body of someone who's just going to walk out the door.
The police shouldn't have done that. That was a very rude thing to do. I bet they meant it in a good way by like give your guardian the last goodbye kind of thing. But that was kind of messed up because like he can't even hug you back.
Yeah.
I just feel so bad. I want to scoop you up and just give you a big hug for that. Oh, your poor little 3-year-old self was just probably so distraught and didn't know what was going on and just felt your world was being taken away from you. But they didn't take your grandmother in that raid, right?
No.
Okay. So he went off to jail.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your grandmother took care of you mostly. And how did that go? When your grandfather was kind of out of the picture, was it a little more calm or?
No.
No. What happened?
Business still has to go on.
Oh, okay.
Like even if the main dealer, the main person isn't there.
It's money. It's their income.
Yeah. Okay.
People have to get their jobs done.
Okay. So there's still people in and out. There's still nefarious things happening in your house and you're still just a little kid trying to survive. How did you do in school?
Awful.
Okay.
Awful.
I bet your attendance was not very good and your presence of mind, you were just...
You were probably thinking about other things.
Yeah. Like I would be at school, but I don't remember really being at school.
Yeah. You kind of remember the recess. You remember recesses, but not
recesses
school.
were like the best time for me.
Yeah, because you get to hang out and stuff.
Yeah, like just hanging out with kids my age. And then also hanging out with kids my age also gave me a little bit of a reality check from a very, very young age. Like, this isn't normal.
Okay.
Yeah, like you saw what quote unquote normal kids' lives were, and then you see your life compared. You're like, I'm different, or they're different. So then it makes you really confused. Like, what's wrong with me, or something like that, or what's wrong with my family? That's another self-degradation that happens when you're traumatized like that. That's what I've realized.
Yeah, a lot of kids will blame themselves. Oh, there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Even though there was nothing wrong with you, you had nothing to do with any of it. You were just kind of a a victim of the whole situation. But
Yeah.
oh, did any teachers or counselors at school reach out to you and help you at all?
Yeah, I had one teacher towards the end of me living with my grandparents. My attendance at school was non-existent. I never went. And the school started to notice. Normally, like, I would get interviewed by CPS and then would tell my grandparents, and then we would run, and then just this continuous cycle over and over again. So the schools never really paid that much attention to me because whenever I'd be taken out of school, I wasn't put directly back into school.
Yeah, you were no longer their problem anymore, and they just went on. So they kept uprooting you to avoid CPS, which is Child Protective Services, for those of you that don't live in the area. Yeah. And so they would just pick you up and move you.
To avoid.
Start it all over.
They were doing illegal things to avoid government and stuff. Yeah.
So when did all that catch up, and when did you get moved from your grandma's?
That all got stopped in March of 2012.
Okay. Yeah. And how old were you then?
8.5, about to turn 9.
Okay. Oof, still so young. And then where did you go then?
From there, I lived with my aunt, my step-grandmother's daughter.
Did that give you a little bit more stable place to live?
No.
Oh,
no. No, it was very chaotic there too.
For the same kind of reasons?
Not necessarily like the same reasons, but like family-wise, like because I'm still in that drama.
Oh, so a lot of fighting and
But it wasn't like your aunt was doing drugs and like illicit things. She was just like involved with the family, so she argued against that. So
So a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, a lot of chaos, a lot
of fighting.
Animosity.
Was it a lot of violence? Were you scared for your safety?
There wasn't necessarily violence in my aunt's house, but definitely in my grandparents' house, there was a lot of violence.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Did it get to you sometimes too?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, Cheyanne, for that. I didn't know that.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so your aunt took you, and how long did that last?
About 8 to 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was she meaning to take you forever and it didn't work out? Or was it just kind of an interim, this is what we'll do for now situation?
It was kind of a little bit of both. It was like, okay, like, obviously I don't want this child to go to a complete stranger. But at the same time, I don't think that it's going to be the best option for her to stay here. So we'll kind of, we'll take her in now, but
we'll try and see
if things don't get
work
better.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's best for, the protection of her family and, all that. It's just best if I'm not there.
Yeah. Okay, so it became clear that it wasn't going to be a long-term solution. Things were too chaotic and too kind of unsafe for you. So then, were you in the foster care system at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so your aunt was in kind of the CPS realm, and they were kind of placing you with your aunt. And then that didn't exactly work out. So then they started looking for another placement.
They didn't. So basically, I stayed with my aunt the whole time through my foster care experience, but they were going to have me stay with them until I got adopted. Okay. But during that time, they're like, no, like, we can't adopt you, but you can stay with us.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, your aunt said, we can't adopt you, but you can stay with us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then that's when they started finding people to adopt me.
Okay, then they had to start finding you a match. How did they do that?
They had me go to a little picnic.
A picnic?
Yeah.
And did you know this was going to find your adoptive parents, or?
No, I just thought it was like a bunch of, foster care kids coming together to hang out and socialize.
So just a fun little picnic for you.
A fun little picnic to pick out your kid that you want to.
It's like a puppy. It's like a shelter.
Like going to the pound and picking out the puppy that you want.
Yeah.
Oh, how does that make you feel? Did it make you feel like, oh, good, they're coming to pick me? Or did it feel like, oh, this is a contest? And
it was kind of surreal because I'm like, it's kind of, in a way, not the most like humanizing experience.
No, I bet.
I would say.
Oh, let's go to a park and just pick which person seems the best. Like, I don't know. It's just, it seems so messed up. But then the situations of every single kid is messed up
Yeah.
as it
So
is.
like this messed up is way better than messed up
Yeah.
in the other way.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of how would be a good way. I mean,
Yeah,
they
well-
tried to make it nice with the picnic, but still, it's sort of
Maybe a one-on-one, but I like not a whole like group of kids where like the parents have to pick from a bunch of kids.
Mhm.
And was it just the parents picking you, or did you have a chance to pick the parents? Was it reciprocal?
Yeah, I had a chance to pick my parents.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
I-
it goes both ways at least. It's not
Yeah.
just you had no choice. If the parents liked you, you're going with them. So
Yeah, I had like not like a huge choice in it, but definitely they gave me more of a choice
Okay.
than I think they were supposed to.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay. And so then you eventually, I'm sure it took a while, but you eventually got adopted by this other family.
yes.
And did they have kids too, or
No, just
Okay,
me.
Just you. Okay. So you're still an only child.
Still an only child.
And how did that work out? How were your adoptive parents? Oh no. Cheyanne.
I mean, they're divorced
Uh-huh.
now, or
Uh-huh.
they're still in the process of getting a divorce.
Okay.
But you know, it was good for about 4 years.
Okay.
It was like the honeymoon stage.
Yeah, like it wasn't the best. It wasn't,
What
rainbows and butterflies.
but it wasn't
Okay.
what you had before.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as chaotic as what you'd been before, but
Right, it
still was not quite right.
Me and my dad got along like really, really well.
Mhm.
We hit it off from the picnic, always
Mhm.
hit it off. Me and my mom had our issues.
Mhm.
So that was always the big issue. That was
Oh.
in it was like me and her just wouldn't get along
Mm.
because I had so much of this like built up trauma that
Yeah.
no one knows about, that I don't
Yeah.
even know that is
Damn.
trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like suppress it. And then I never had like a full mother figure in my life.
Mhm.
And I have her. And it's just kind of this push and pull.
Yeah.
It was very push and pull
Mm.
for like 4 years.
Speaking as an adoptive parent, from the reading I've done and from talking to many, many adoptive parents, the adoptive mom gets the brunt of the trauma response from the adoptee because it's primarily your wound with your birth mother that is the problem, the root problem at the very, very beginning. So it's the adoptive mother that often gets the brunt of it.
That just reminded me, like, I had a very big resentment towards you, Mom, but
Mhm.
it was an irrational resentment. It was a resentment towards my birth mom that I was placing onto you.
Sure, because I was the one that was here.
Yeah.
And it also means that hopefully the adoptive mother is a safe person. And so kids act out against the safe person.
Mhm.
They know that we're not going to reject you or get rid of you. And so in a way, that means your adoptive mom might have been a safe person. It's
Mhm.
kind of backwards looking, but
Yeah.
it's kind of complicated. But I also think mothers and daughters, that relationship is complicated
Yeah.
also. Just it's
Hormones
just-
and
oh,
just-
good Lord.
Everything in one.
Oh, so hard. This is so hard to just, and people think, oh, adoption, yay. We just start all over and start fresh.
Yeah,
and-
everyone thinks it's sunshine and rainbows, but no,
It's
it's
not.
more traumatizing for
No.
both parties than a lot of people think.
It's
Yeah.
so hard. It's so hard. You can't just pretend that you can exchange parents
No,
and
that-
nothing will happen. It's,
Because there's a bond, there's a
Yeah.
connection, of like a chemical connection
Mhm.
that I believe that is within humans
sure.
from kin to kin, like from mother to kin, is like you can't separate that.
Yeah.
You can't take that away.
You can't just say, okay, here's another one.
No,
Bond with this one.
there's no chemical connection with that
Mm-mm.
those two humans, but there can be an emotional
Yeah.
connection.
And we do the best we can. And,
Oh yeah,
and we, try to meet needs and whatever, but there's still missing that piece. And if you talk to adult adoptees, there's just this kind of hole.
that who haven't worked through their stuff. They're very empty feeling.
Mhm.
They feel like or very angry people
Yeah, it can
or
be
very sad. It's like they're very on one scale. They're not ever really balanced. So like me, I get very agitated very quickly. I'm a very angry person because I think it's a very deep wound of anger towards my mother and my birth parents and stuff.
Mhm.
It's not you, Mom, but like my
Mhm.
birth mother. It's this resentment, this anger that I never can really feel or never release because I'm never going to be able to see her.
Mhm.
I can never have that closure. So I have to work through it myself to get that
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And most people that aren't adopted just have to deal with this part. I mean, you just
you live life. You live life as a normal person, and you don't ever feel these emotions that I'm not wanted, like in like a very deep sense, like you actually were given up, like that kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, there's an episode, I can't remember what number it is, but I'll put it in the show notes, with Brenda, and she's about my age, and she was adopted to a fabulous adoptive family, had a great life, and always still feels like she's not worthy, not good enough. You know, there's just this not quite complete feeling. And she's done a lot of work, and it's still kind of there. It's like just something that adoptive people continually have to deal with. And it's
just something
really
you
hard.
have to accept. Yeah. And have to accept with love. And like, maybe it was out of hate for some situations, and that's a horrible situation if that was to happen. But usually if you were adopted or given up for adoption, it was out of some sort of respect for you. Like, I don't want you to have a bad life. Please.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, Cheyanne, your birth mother tried to give you a better life with your grandparents. It didn't work out the way maybe she thought, but she tried. And, you know, and your aunt tried, your grandma tried. Everybody's just doing the best they can. I really truly believe that.
Everyone's human. Everyone, it feels like I've realized this as a kid. You think parents have the knowledge of the universe. No.
We just are making it up as we go along.
Teenagers and young adults are probably the exact same as a 45-year-old, because like in the idea of knowledge, not maybe like they have some more knowledge, but it's like they don't know exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
It takes a lot of conscientious growth work to come to terms with things like these big picture things. So
and then not everyone agrees. So not one idea is going to be solid for everyone.
That's right. That's right. Everybody has to figure it out. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. And grown-ups certainly don't know all the answers. That's for sure. We don't always have it pulled together. And poor kids are just dependent on us.
There's no manual to raise the, ideal perfect kid.
Right. Yeah. And you mix in some of these other things, drugs and
trauma.
And I'm sure if you looked back at your birth parents, your grandparents, all of these people probably had generations full of trauma.
Generational trauma. That's the big thing. Trauma is sometimes passed down.
Yeah, definitely. So we're at your adoptive family. It's going okay. You're doing okay with your dad, not so much with your adoptive mom.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, they got divorced. And was that kind of a messy divorce? And
very messy.
Very messy.
Very messy. It was just situational events that just, everything was just going wrong very, very, very fast. And like, I basically called their divorce before they knew.
Oh no.
If you can feel that, then that automatically means.
Yeah. Like, I knew before my mom knew.
Because you're so vigilant and always scoping out what's going on.
Yeah, because I'm always just aware of everything. I was doing awful. Like, my mental health was the worst it had ever been. And right before they got divorced, my parents put me into a psychiatric hospital just because it was just the best idea. And I'm like, I went voluntarily. I'm I need to get help.
Were you having a lot of anxiety or suicidal ideation or what?
Mood swings.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't control my anger.
Oh, okay. So like you were almost out of your body, kind of. You didn't have control.
I was like dissociated 95% of my day. Wow. And I was acting out. I was violent. I was just not myself. And I'm like, I need to get help or else, no one's going to get better. So I went into the hospital, and then they're like, okay, we're going to put you in a residential like housing thing. And they decided to do the short-term one, which was 35 days at the max.
Okay.
2 weeks into my stay there, we had a family therapy session, and my dad told me, he's like, hey, me and your mom are getting a divorce. And then I'm like, I know. Like, which I didn't tell them that like right then and there, but like a few days later, I'm like, I know. Like, before I went into the hospital, I told the counselor, I'm like, how much you want to bet that they're going to get a divorce? Like, so it was hard, but I'm glad I was in the residential when it happened, even though I kind of have a lot of mixed feelings about that. But it was better that it was done there and that I was in, supervision of people.
Yeah.
And
24/7, someone was watching you, and you had counselors everywhere. And
that's not the best place to be, but it's a safe place to be.
Yeah.
It's safe. Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that might not have been the last residential place you were at. Did you go to other ones or in and out? Or
That was the only residential that I was in, but I've been to psychiatric hospitals since.
Okay. Okay. And usually because you're kind of getting out of control, or did you also have suicidal ideation or attempts or anything like that?
Yeah.
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 Oh. I know a lot of kids are doing self-harm cutting and things like that. Did you do
that was definitely like a big thing for me back then. It was just, I was not myself.
Yeah.
That was kind of, it was my rock bottom.
Yeah.
I feel like just weirdly like I want to know when that dark point was, because it feels like I was in the exact same place at that time. Like at the same time you were, I was in my dark place. It feels like it's all kind of going in the same path of my path, you know? Like I had adoption, and then I had a divorce, and I went into this rut of depression and anxiety, and then I got into drugs, and then now I'm good because like I figured things out. So it's like there's a path that a lot of people follow. And it seems like it's very parallel to mine, you know?
Did you find that the psych hospitals and the different programs, were they helpful? Did they give you tools that you needed?
Yeah. The only time that I've gone involuntary was the very first time I went to the hospital.
Okay.
But besides that, all the other times I've gone, I want to go to the hospital. It was always me like, okay, it's time for me to go, because I know my potential and I don't want to get into such a bad spot where I just completely dissociate and just don't remember, and then
hurt yourself, hurt someone else.
Like I don't want to hurt myself in the middle of a dissociation thing, and I'm like, oh, I'm in the hospital. I'm like, no, like I need to get help and work on myself, because how am I gonna help other people if I don't help myself?
No, that's a great way to use the hospital. That's what it's for, is for help. What my experience was, I got addicted to it. I got addicted to that sense of community, that sense of freedom, in a way of just having a bunch of kids running a place. When you go to psych hospitals for that reason, don't do that.
That's like, that becomes your escape from society.
It is. It literally is an escape from society. You don't know what's happening outside. You have this own little community. Yeah. It's very comfortable, but it's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Joey kind of figured out how to say
what to get me into hospitals like
We're
that.
not going to tell
I'm
anyone.
not going to tell anyone what the truth serum is to get you into those things, but it is an escape for some people. And I met people that strictly go there to get away from their parents, just to get away from their parents.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of kids that refuse to go.
Oh yeah.
They won't go to wilderness, or they won't go to a hospital or whatever.
Because
they refuse.
There's a stigma. Those kids, there's a stigma in their head. That's what I've realized, is that I'm not fucked up in the head. I am okay. I don't need to be with the loonies. Like, But when you go into those psych hospitals, we're not loony. Well, maybe 1 out of 20 people are really
really not there.
Not there, yeah.
Joey had a roommate that peed in the corner and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe there's a few like really kids that are really, really
not there,
like insane, like truly insane. But so would you encourage teens that are really, really struggling that a psych hospital or a residential treatment center or a wilderness or whatever, they should go?
I personally would.
Go.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's not as bad as people make it out to be if you find the right one.
If you find the right one, and it's also the timing. It's the timing of who's there. Because like me, it started off great with the right people, but then some other kids came in who influenced me wrong, and you can just start doing the bad things.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because, you've got all the kids together that are having trouble and they teach each other all the bad stuff.
In Nevada, I think I told you, Mom, I didn't know about Benadryl and Chlorcidin until Nevada.
I know. The hospital that we sent him to in Nevada, oh God, it was terrible.
Yeah, no, that was probably more traumatizing than...
Yeah, so Joyce had some good experiences and some really bad experiences. So it kind of just depends on who's there. Who's there as a counselor.
And it does depend on the facility.
The kids.
Because sometimes the facilities are tainted with bad people, like bad facilitators.
Yeah.
There's some that just the people running it are just, they're not in it to help people. They're in it for the money.
Yeah.
Or just the status of something, their ego.
Well, I'm glad you got some help there. Was there any particular techniques or tools that they gave you there that really helped you? Or was there a certain person that really helped? Or
like DBT?
Yeah, a lot of DBT.
Okay, what's DBT?
Dialectical behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
Dialectical, I think. Dialectical behavioral therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. Okay. What the heck is that?
I'm not 100% sure what it is.
What does it look like for a kid going through it?
For me, I'm pretty sure there's like different variations of it, but mine was in a group setting. That's kind of the best way that I heal is in group settings. So I would always, instead of going into like a hospital, I'll be like, okay, it's time to go back to group therapy. It's time to, get back and ground myself and start doing wellness things.
Is it the cutoff of, my understanding is, change the pattern?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's very much like, okay, you're in this deep cycle of negativity and all that. Okay, let's not ignore it, but let's see how we can change it and look at it from a different way, a different perspective.
That's a really good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I understand that they use it a lot with kids that struggle with suicidal ideation.
Yeah, because it's a pattern of, I want to die.
Yeah, that negative thinking.
The negative thinking, it's a cycle in your head. So like Cheyanne said, it's taking you out of, not to ignore it, but to actually examine it even more than you want to then gain an understanding to change it.
Yeah.
Okay, so DBT, and that was done at like IOPs or at psych hospitals or?
IOPs, psych hospitals. My school did it at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, actually school is doing it now a lot more.
Oh, good. And IOP is intensive outpatient program.
Yeah. So for mine, I would go for 2.5 hours, 3 to 4 times a week.
Oh, okay. That's not so much. That's a lot of groups, they had music therapy where Joey was, and just different modalities.
Looking back at it, that was probably my favorite one.
Okay.
Because I was very willing to work there.
Yeah, they liked you there. They're like, yeah, he's willing. There's a lot of kids that just sit there and do nothing.
Oh my God. There's this one. She was she was younger than me, but she was like the most anti everything.
Totally shut down.
No, like if she did the opposite of what, everything opposite of what the counselors wanted, just to piss them off.
Yeah. Like antisocial.
Like antisocial.
I will do everything in my power to not do what you do just to prove a point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's oppositional. And that also comes from trauma. They've just figured out, okay, I'm just going to do everything opposite.
Because they've learned, or something in that, for those type of people, they're like, I never got what I wanted, so I'm not going to let you get what you want.
Right. So, right. But it sounds like, Cheyanne, you never had that. And Joey was never like that either. Joey always worked hard. And it sounds like you took advantage of the opportunity to get some healing.
For the most part, like,
sure. You're still a teen, but
I had my definitely defiant moments where I'm like, I'm not going to therapy. I'm never doing therapy again. But then I get out of that and then I'm like, I want to go to therapy now.
Okay. No, Cheyanne sounds exactly like me. I bet she didn't run away from a rehab and take LSD, but
no, not quite. I tried to knock down a metal gate though.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, the amount of times we tried to elope.
Yeah, Joey was an eloper and ran away a lot.
That was because it was a pattern of mine.
Yeah, very strong flight response, this child.
But no, not anymore.
Yeah, no, he used to. He worked that out, I think.
No, I'm really good with it now. But
yeah.
You remember when I walked 28 miles?
Yes, I do. Yes, he walked away from our house and walked 28 miles to his dad's house.
From Norwalk, like LA County, walked the riverbed all the way to Huntington Beach.
Yeah,
that would be something I would do if I was like in a dissociative state.
I think I was not thinking about it. I was very out of it because I don't remember that whole walk.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, yeah, kids are going to do some crazy shit sometimes.
But you just gotta try not to.
As a parent, if I was a parent and I was doing what I was doing back in the day, I would be just saying, I would approach it as in not shame, not anything. I would say there's something that's troubling you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say you're doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing it unless you're doing something illegal, but give me a chance now to help you get through this and nurture. It's all about nurturing and loving. And I do understand that that's something I need to work on too, is the ability to see that all the time because I'm human. I get angry. I get mad, but my true belief is that nurturing and love is the key to healing. Healing is not something you can tough love that thing out.
Right. Yeah. Just shutting people out doesn't help.
No.
Being
Like
really
stonewalling.
harsh and punishing, that doesn't help
No,
people. That never makes you
gaslighting.
feel
That's
better.
just rude at that point. Like,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
So who are the people that gave you that support that you needed, Cheyanne? Because you seem really put together now. You have a job. You got a smile on your face. You seem like a very upstanding person. How did you get through that childhood? And you're 19 now. Who helped you with that? And what worked for you?
Honestly, I just think my support system, even though it's always constantly changing, but like the people who I keep in it are always the people who I know aren't gonna use what I say against me. They're not gonna be like, oh, you are like this, so you're crazy. I don't want to be around you.
You don't like people putting you in a box.
Yeah. So I'm gonna surround myself with people who want the best for me, that don't want me to, go down the same path that my birth parents did.
Yeah.
So if I have to move out, because that's what I ended up doing, I moved out to kind of better work on myself, because, I do things like independently. Like if I'm, if I feel like I'm not like mentally there, I'm like, I'm going to take the day and just like maybe meditate or just
relax,
do things that can, clear my mind and
like self-healing stuff.
Not always have this constant worry about, the past or
you seem really self-aware.
Yeah.
That you
knowing your body.
Oh yeah, no, that's a thing I've noticed. She's very aware of what's going on. Like obviously, like sometimes like there's everyone does this. Like you kind of blank out for a second, but she's very into it, like intuitive of the situation, and then from learning about what she went through in her past, I see why. I now see why you gained a survival tactic.
Yeah. And it seems, I don't know, I'm sure you might have experimented things, but it doesn't seem like you went the whole addiction route. Did you steer clear of that, or are you still working on that?
I'm working on it. It's not where I need rehab or anything like that. It's mainly just nicotine that is like my main addiction. But besides that, I'll experiment once in a while, which is also very difficult because one, don't experiment with drugs. Like first, don't experiment with anything.
Playing
like,
with fire, right?
But I experiment and then I end up feeling extremely bad about it.
Like shame after?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I'm like, this isn't who I am.
Yeah, this is not what I'm supposed to do with my life.
Yeah. So I'm like,
you saw so much bad stuff from drugs when you were little.
Yeah.
And I did not nearly to the extent, but we had foster kids in our home when I was a kid. They were older than us and brought drugs into the house and chaos and violence into our house. And that's why I'm so squeaky clean. I've never done drugs because I'm like, I don't want to do that. That was horrible.
You literally were traumatized.
Yeah.
To
like why would I want to pick that up? That's horrible.
Because you saw what it could do.
Yeah. So I've been super goody two shoes because I don't even want to give it a try. That's not worth it. So is that kind of how you felt too? It's just like, I know what this would lead to.
Yeah. And it's also, I have like this weird way of not necessarily like punishing myself, but if like, for example, I experimented with LSD and it didn't go the best way that, I wanted it to, but I ended up just going to the hospital and just getting myself checked out because I know that I have an addictive personality. And if I don't do something that will kind of scare me into not doing it again, I will do it again.
So you went and got help right away.
Yeah.
You said, listen, I need help.
And I was just like, I took LSD last night. I'm not myself. I don't feel good. Basically, I was like, can you guys make sure I'm okay?
Yeah. And did they help you or did they treat you like an off the rails teen?
They helped me, but then treated me like like off rails teen.
So they help because that's the obligation. And then they have their own egos and they're like, oh, you shouldn't do LSD. Yeah. That's where we should come into hospitals and say, like, we take over that part. Like, the doctors do the health thing. We come in to do the harm reduction stuff.
Yeah.
We should actually contact someone about that.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we could talk to medical people because, Joey has definitely encountered kind of discrimination or kind of bad attitudes.
The last time I went to the hospital, the ER, Mom, the last time.
It was when I wasn't home.
Yeah, when you were home and then Sonia took me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even put an IV in me.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was super, super dehydrated, and they didn't even put him on an IV.
Because I told them I had CHS, and they're like, well, we can't treat that.
Don't
kinda,
smoke.
Kinda like you deserve it.
Yeah. This is what happens to people that smoke. It was like, bruh, so I'm going to die if on your terms just because I didn't do what you think is right? What?
And the previous hospital, when we went to the hospital in Minnesota,
oh my God,
when we were out of town, they were so much better.
So good. And they understood what CHS was.
Yeah. And they weren't judgmental. They just gave him the hydration that he needed. And they gave him aromatherapy.
Who would have heard of that?
From being nauseous. Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It was quite a difference from the one he got at home.
Yeah.
The ER experience
that's kind of sad that
yeah,
our healthcare is messed up.
Yeah, there's so much stigma. That's one of the reasons we make this podcast, right, Joey?
It's
to destigmatize.
Exactly, destigmatize and
the stigma.
Shine light to what can come out of the trauma, and not in don't go through trauma on purpose, but
right.
If you were traumatized, there's a path of healing.
Yeah. Yeah, Gabor Mate, who's a doctor that works in addiction and trauma. I love him so much.
Oh my God,
Joey loves him too. He says, not why the addiction, but why the pain.
Mm-hmm.
What is behind it? It's not that the addicted people are broken or sinful or whatever, or even a disease. It's not a disease. It's a response to the trauma you experienced. Your mental health issues and your experimentation
everything like that
with drugs
is a response to what happened in the past.
It was so painful. You're just trying to
survive.
Yeah, just trying to survive, literally. So you're 19.
Yes.
Did you finish high school?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And what are you doing now? And what do you hope to do? What's kind of your 10-year plan?
Ooh, a 10-year plan would probably be go to college. I'm going to college in the fall. Okay. So I'm excited about that.
Where are you going to go?
Going to Golden West for 2 years, I think.
Yeah, community college. I am a huge proponent of community college. I work at one. And I think they're awesome, especially for kids that don't know exactly what they're going to do. It's a great place. They're very nurturing, small.
Really good community.
Inexpensive.
Yeah.
And what are you planning to study?
Psychology.
Ooh.
Oh, you want to go help other kids?
Mm-hmm.
Other kids or other people in general?
It's more like adolescents.
Oh, okay. You
want
to
work with when I was 16, my big thing was I wanted to be a psych nurse for an adolescent unit.
Oh, that's cool.
Did you have someone there that you really liked and want to emulate?
Yeah. There were a couple good ones. There was one that kind of made me want to become. So there was one really, really good one who made me want to become an RN for a psych unit. And then there was one really, really bad one who also made me want to.
Because you're I don't want anyone to suffer from that pain. So I'm going to be another one.
I don't want someone like me to suffer because they're not doing their job. Mm-hmm. They don't like working with a bunch of kids.
Yeah, it takes a special person to do that. But
why did you even take that job?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, good. That sounds very exciting. I think Joey, he keeps switching around, but sometimes he wants to go help other kids.
Well, I wish I could do everything. It's
I know you have so many interests. It's all good.
I know.
It's just figure it out.
I don't know which one to land on.
But I think Joey would really be a great counselor or rehab counselor or just a regular therapist kind of person. Or he's looked into studying the brain and all sorts of things. And I think it's just really admirable that you guys want to take your traumatic experiences, flip them around, and go get the education you need to go help other people.
Yeah. And for this generation and this community of people that understand that it's trauma and then that are forward thinking about things like this, this generation is going to be very solid, I think.
Yeah. I think you guys have got a lot put together that we didn't know about when we were your age.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's this, like I said, this little clique of kids that understand this stuff will be the leaders, I think, of the psychiatric and the health and emotional side, because it's important and it's a very forward step in mental health that we're thinking like this.
So Cheyanne, what advice would you have for adoptive parents? how can adoptive parents help their kids? I would say 99.9% of adopted kids have had trauma because just being relinquished is trauma. But you particularly had a lot more trauma. What can adoptive parents do to make your life a little better?
I think there's two main ones. Listen to what your kid's telling you, no matter if it's the slightest little detail about their past, or maybe you think it's irrelevant, but to them it's a really, really big thing. And just, listen and kind of put yourself in the kid's shoes and try and like imagine how would you go through it when you were, whatever age the kid was, like, oh, like they were, 7 and they had to go through this. Like, no wonder they're so angry. Like, no wonder they're so sad.
Yeah.
Like
having some empathy.
Like maybe I shouldn't be screaming at them about their chores at the moment. Like, maybe
that's the least of our worries right now is if they're doing their chores perfectly correctly. Yeah.
Let's just like make sure that, just make sure that the child is okay mentally, because more often than not, a lot of adoptive kids have a lot of mental health issues because they're just kind of taught to suppress it and don't talk about it.
And it comes out somehow, some way, eventually.
In anger, a lot of times.
Yeah. Anger, suicidal ideation,
depression.
A lot of different ways. Yeah.
Definitely patience.
And I think patient. That adoptive parents kind of swoop in and think we're going to be the saviors of things, but I don't know if anyone really warns adoptive parents what a big job this is going to be. Yeah. It's not just raising a kid the regular way. It's like deep dive into mental health and finding resources for your kid. And it's a really big responsibility.
It's like kind of redoing their whole brain, their whole setup, kind of.
Yeah. So it's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And so do you have any advice for just everybody? What have you learned through this whole thing? Is there any sort of global advice you would like to give? Or maybe advice for kids, for teenagers?
Don't rely on other people to make you happy.
That's a good one.
Don't rely on other people to make you happy, no matter how hard it is. But I've had my fair share of like clinging and then...
Like codependency almost?
Yeah. And a lot of times what I've had to learn the hard way is at the end of the day, you have yourself.
Yeah.
That's the last person you're always going to have.
Literally, you can't run away from your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Rely on yourself, not others.
Don't rely on other people to give you everything you need and to make you happy. And I bet it would be easy for someone in your shoes to just sort of glom onto somebody as a partner or a...
That's what like a lot of, I think, adoptees do. Is rely on others because they didn't ever... It's either two ways. It's either they rely strictly on themselves because they never trust anyone else, or they want the attachment so bad that they do codependently use others,
Joey, what do you see in Cheyanne that you admire?
I admire her persistence. I don't know if that's the word, but like to work through so much. Even today, she works through so much stress and all that. But to be so solid in this moment and talk about her life so calmly and even laugh about some of the hard things, I admire that so much because it's hard to do that, to look back at your past and talk about it and just talk, especially on a podcast about that, I admire that. That I do admire that.
Have you shared this story very much with other people in the public?
No.
It was like your first time, right?
Yeah, it's my first time talking about it.
Oh, we're so proud of you. And I think that you're sharing your story will help a lot of other kids and families, and maybe just encourage everyone to have a little more empathy for everyone. We don't know. I mean, if I saw you, Cheyanne works at Blaze Pizza. If I went to Blaze Pizza and she was helping me, I would never in a million years guess all the stuff that you've had to deal with in your life.
No, because no one knows. No one has the feeling to ask, hey, are you okay?
Yeah, you don't have it labeled on your forehead or anything.
No.
So just let's everyone give everybody
a little bit of grace.
Some grace.
Yeah.
And everybody's just working through so much pain, and we just never know what people are dealing with. So everybody gets extra grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And extra care. And Cheyanne, I want to be here for you however I can help you. And, you're Joy's friend, and I just admire you so much. And so however we can help, just let us know.
Yeah. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Well, listeners, I really hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Cheyanne and Joey, and please share it with anyone you think that might be helped with it, maybe adoptive families, foster families, other teenagers, whatever. We want these conversations to help a lot of other people. So help us spread the word. You can find us on social media and on YouTube. And we have a Patreon account, patreon.com/safehome. If you're motivated to help the podcast out so we can maintain commercial-free episodes, you can donate $5, $10, or $25 a month, and every little bit helps. So thank you very much to our Patreon supporters, and to any of you who are interested, please check that out. And one other way you can help the podcast is by going to Apple Podcasts. Even if that's not how you listen to us, go to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. A 5-star review would be the best. And it really helps to bring other people to the podcast that we don't even know. So help us get the word out to other people so people can be healed and learn new things and be inspired by people like Cheyanne and Joey. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks again for coming to talk to us, Cheyanne. I really appreciate you being open and vulnerable.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
And Joey, Cheyanne, and I want you to
stay safe.